This is Adventure for Life. I'm Joel. Welcome to the Grenadier Expedition Namibia Synopsis videos. We entered the Skeleton Coast National Park, and that next morning we got to see the evidence that lions were in that area. Then we came up to the first, I'd say really exciting part of the driving part of it, which was we got to our first sand dune slip face. Hello, hello, hello. The next day got up and we drove for some time across the sand, and we got to the white agate rocks. And that was interesting because, supposedly that white agate is out there kind of everywhere, but we saw it in a place that it was actually exposed naturally. And because this is all a big, huge national park, they don't allow companies to come in there and kind of mine and get that agate rock for whatever it's good for. The next thing we did was one of the high points of the trip, at least from my standpoint. We pull up to the beach, and there were literally thousands of seals on that beach. We could turn and look south, turn and look north, and as far as you could see, there were seals. And you remember there were some baby seals there, and the babies were supposedly only 2-3 days old, and that's what they looked like. I don't even think their eyes were open at that point. Their moms were kind of pushing them around and whatnot. There were some big male seals there. There were some big female seals too. Drove a little bit further down and got to see the Dunedin Star wreckage site. Hearing about seeing the wreckage site, we thought we were going to see a boat. Well, the boat's gone. So the Dunedin Star wrecked there, I think, during World War II, and there was a big effort to save the people. Somehow there was some communication that let people know that they had run aground. The airplane tried to fly in there and help them. There were some airplanes, I believe, that flew over and dropped supplies to them until motorized vehicles could get to them. But anyhow, we didn't actually see the Dunedin Star boat itself because its remnants are gone now, but they had built a makeshift covering for themselves while they waited the 2 or 3 or 4 or however many days it was until they were rescued. So the evidence of that structure that they built to protect themselves while waiting on rescue was still there. Spent quite a bit more time driving down the beach, which again, it was beautiful. We got to do it for really a day and a half, maybe 2 days, and it was just awesome to see the waves just continually come up on the beach and to get to drive down there on the beach like we did. Get to get right in the water. That was awesome. We finally got to the Angolan border and the Kanini River, and got to have lunch there. It's a really enjoyable thing to do. Saw a big crocodile there. Unfortunately, I didn't get it on video. But found out at that point that the Kanini River, which separates Angola from Namibia, was full of Nile crocodiles. And the reason they were called Nile crocodiles is because they were discovered and named on the Nile first, and then later they discovered that same kind of crocodile is in the Kanini River. Then we got to another one of the high points of the trip, which was the huge dune slip face descent that we did. And fortunately, we got to pull over there, and you may remember the guy that was blazing the trail, Ari, drove his truck up there and went down the slip face first, and as luck would have it, my daughter was actually riding with him at the time, and so she got to be one of the first people over the slip face. I got to ride over it with one of the other guides. Wow, Look at that view. So that's where we were. You can see right there, and here's where we're going. So this is what, 200 feet, 250 maybe?
At least 250.
Yeah, 200, and this incline, oh, we don't have the attitude. We are at 31 degrees. Trust me, it looks like it's 60 degrees. That sound, if you can hear it, is the sand crunching beneath us. Wow. I think probably at least 5 or 6 or 7 trips got made over that dune, and various people got to go down the slip face. And it was probably, again, our guess was, Phil and I guessed it was maybe 250 feet down that slip face. So it was just spectacular. That night we drove across the sand, and we got to our campsite for day 3, which again was set up for us by our support team, and we stayed inland on the Kanini River at the campsite there, and just a great view. We were probably several hundred feet above the Kanini River, had a great view. You could see all the way to the ocean with your naked eye. It was really a spectacular place to stay. So on day 4, we left our tent camp above the Kanini River and drove down into the Kanini River Valley with Angola to the north. Great descent there. Spent some time and had already been, but Ari, our dune guide, did a lot of trailblazing that day. Fortunately, I got to ride with him a little ways, and he kind of instructed me on what he was doing and how he went about it, which was very interesting. And then he told me about his truck. Now, it was a little bit unfortunate that he was driving Ford F-250 rather than a Quartermaster. But anyway, that's what he had, and that's what he was using, had been using for a long time. Anyhow, he showed me all the features of his truck. It was a manual transmission, by the way, which I found very interesting, because again, he said that he would have burned up his transmission 10 times if it had been an automatic with the way he worked the vehicle. Then we ran into some traveling companions. There was a group of birds that were following us around, and I made the joke that I wasn't quite sure if they were vultures or not, and waiting for us to just expire out there in the middle of the dunes. Now, of course, they weren't vultures. I think they had probably spotted groups of vehicles before and been able to get some food from them, but it was fun to have them traveling along with us for a little while. We then got to the Hartman's mountain range and went up to the top of a mountain that allowed us to look down into the mountain range, which was very beautiful. And then obviously look down into the valley, and if you remember, I videoed that descent down to the valley, which we'll get to in a second. Saw 8 oryx all running together as we descended into the Hartman Valley. And then, as I mentioned just a second ago, I videoed a long descent, and we accelerated the video down into the Hartman Valley, because it was a great drive through the sand, but in between the rocks and the sides of the mountains and whatnot. When we got to the bottom of that, we had to make say an unfortunate goodbye to our friend and our guide, Ari. His job was to get us through the dunes, and he had done that, and once we got to that point, then Phil was able to take it from there, and so we said goodbye to Ari. And while we were in that location saying goodbye to Ari, I saw 5 ostrich way off in the distance, and as you remember, I had to expand the camera lens pretty wide, and it was still a little hard to see, but it was very interesting to see 5 ostrich out in the middle of the desert, and begged the question, where are you getting your food, where are you getting your water, whatnot. We made the turn to head toward the Serra-Kafema Wilderness Lodge, so we were done with the tent camping at that point. We descended a big slip face, which I think, and this would be another kind of junior high point for me, that big slip face as we were nearing the Serra-Kafema Lodge. and we obviously all took that one at a time. As we drove closer to the Serikafema Lodge, we were greeted by some of the camp workers that were out doing some road maintenance. Hello, hello, hello! That was pretty funny. They obviously liked the camera. And got to see their stretched Defender truck, which I thought was really, really cool. And then we eventually arrived into the Serikafema Lodge. And of course, we didn't know exactly what we were getting into, but it was a fabulous, fabulous lodge that we got to spend 2 nights at.